Welcome to the Franchise Frontier, the podcast where we explore the evolving franchise landscape, dive into latest industry trends, and share actionable tools and tactics to help you build and grow your business.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Franchise Frontier podcast, where we try to drop in on new tips and tricks or ideas of business ownership. Today, we have a special guest, Tim from north of Scottsdale, right? I'll let you explain where that is currently actually in Academy for Varsity Zone. So we're even pulling it back a little bit just to kind of get to know Tim, kind of talk about the process that he's been through and kind of what led him to horsepower in Varsity Zone. So Tim, welcome.
Thank you, Dave. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So give us a little background on yourself. Like, what were you doing before you got into business ownership, and kind of what led you to looking into business ownership?
As quick as I can, I spent 35, 40 years in financial services, in real estate mortgage financing. I started with my own company, loved it, had it for about 5 or 6 years, and I sold that on to a large company, Wells Fargo.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, a lot of people have. And I went through the big company thing, right? I did that for 25 years. And I enjoyed Wells Fargo, learned a lot at Wells Fargo, but it's big corporation. And then I went to Washington, D.C. I worked at Freddie Mac, again, another really big company for a few years. And I retired about 3 years ago. And I tell people this, and this is where Chris and I hit it off, is that I vowed I'm going to play golf every day and I'm not going to get bored. I'm going to enjoy it. And I did that for a year. Then it was great. I was having a ball. 6 months later, I was like, I got to go do something. And through a coach and people I worked with and looking at other opportunities, we found the franchise options. And I had a couple other opportunities I was looking at. And then horsepower with Varsity Zone was one that I looked at. And long story short, here I am. I just really liked the whole inclusive model that horsepower has that you can really plug into, and the support structure that comes with the horsepower brand concept. So that's why I picked going the Varsity Zone path with horsepower.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so can I ask, in that 1 year, did your golf game get better or worse?
It got pretty good.
Good.
I'm not going to lie.
Good. That's good.
It got pretty.
And so, another thing, as you said, you had a couple other options. I always wonder, was just buying a business an option for you? And if so, what kind of lended you the hand to go with possibly a franchise versus buying a pre-existing business?
Yeah, I did look at buying a business, and good for business owners out there, but the multiple I thought was just stupid that you're going to pay to buy a business. Why are you going to pay 3-5 times whatever the revenue goal is and have to buy that way into a business when I can invest a fraction of that and I can build it up myself? So I decided to go the path of building my own business. I remember doing my own business, and I was head of HR, head of payroll, accounting manager, sales manager. You wore all the hats and you kind of figured it out as you went. And so I learned off of that piece that that's a tough way to go and it's a long haul to go. And that's when my coach I was working with introduced me to the franchise opportunities. And it was multiple franchise opportunities that I looked at. And I like the idea that a lot of that is built out for you. You can plug into it. And it's a community that you can plug into as well, not just some of those processes, instead of having to build it yourself. In doing something like HVAC, I'd have to go get all the vendor relationships. I'd have to go pull all those pieces together. And that was already done with the pieces that are part of Varsity Zone and horsepower. So that's why franchise versus buying it, I could, but it just seemed like it wasn't a good investment. It was just too much money.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to do it on my own, but starting everything where I'm going to have to wear all those hats again isn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to plug into it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like just from getting to know you that you're a little bit of a builder, which is not a terrible thing. And so is there something that sparked your interest in HVAC? Is there something that led you to HVAC as you look through? Or did you just say, like, this is a business where it's a little bit unsophisticated, right? And I think that I can take this and kind of run with it.
I looked at it more, as you mentioned, I'm in the North Phoenix, Scottsdale market is where I am. And when it's July and it's 120 degrees and your air conditioner goes out, it's not a luxury. You need to have air conditioning. So it's one of those things that I knew it's not a fad. It's not something that's going to come and go. It's something that people have to have, especially in a market like what I'm in. So that's why I wanted to go something like HVAC. I looked at things like, I looked at a Pilates studio. I looked at some multiple options through healthcare and doing some of those pieces and trying to deal with, you have to get Medicaid approval and all the healthcare stuff. It's just a long, arduous haul to get that through. And I like the whole idea of home services. I like the whole idea of a bigger ticket item to be able to plug into with HVAC and ongoing service that you can get by having an HVAC service if you sell it up, position it and sell it the right way. It just became very attractive to me. I didn't go looking for an HVAC service. It was one that I had an opportunity to look at and said, I like that. I'm gonna press more into that piece, and here I am.
And so when you think back of your former business that you started and ended up selling, so you go back into business ownership of there, is there anything that, now that you're doing it second time around, you say, this is a mistake or not a mistake or a hurdle that I had the first time around that I'll be ready for this time?
Yeah, and I think I did that by plugging into the franchise, right? I mean, what I didn't realize first time around is I'm just going to go do mortgages. Well, you can't. You got to meet with your accountant. You got to meet with your lenders. You got to put all the relationships together. You got to handle all the HR pieces because as you build your business, you're building a team. And that took away from what I like to do and what I'm good at, which is selling and doing. I was in the mortgage business, selling mortgages and working with people and doing the mortgages. So this time I'm coming in going, that's where I'm going to keep a lot of my focus, running the business, marketing for the business and being involved in that piece of it. And I can plug really hard into horsepower and rely on Z books and Z marketing and, all the vendor relationships that are all set up. Those pieces are there. I don't have to go spend time doing that. That takes away from what I'm good at. That's what so far, that's what I really like.
Yeah.
So we'll see, maybe ask me that question in, 3 to 6 months. Maybe there'll be something else that I find.
You bring up a really interesting point. And a lot of times when I do a podcast like this, there's not always is there someone who has previously owned a business and is owning another business. Oftentimes it's people that have been in high level positions and have decided to own a business. So you bring a unique perspective where, oftentimes as the sales team, when we talk about the Z services and those type of things, we highlight them as if this is something that's very valuable. And oftentimes people don't see that in the very beginning because they haven't been through what you said in terms of, I know a lot of people in marketing, I'll just go and do the marketing with so-and-so. It's not that easy.
It's not.
The build out is not that easy. The brand recognition is not that easy. I chat with people a lot about the call center version. And I say, when you start your business, you might not need a call center and that's fine. But at some point you're going to want one. And trust me, the fact that it's already built out, they know what Varsity Zone is or Mighty Dog or whatever that might be. And literally you can get going right away is something that people think, well, when I have to deal with that, it won't be a big deal, but it is a big deal. And you kind of bring a different perspective of that when you started to talk about the Z services.
Well, it's a huge deal. You cannot overstate how big of a deal that is. I mean, for me, if I didn't have something like the call center to be able to plug into, I'd have to sit in the office or hire somebody in my office to sit here and answer the phones all day and hope they know what they're doing. And for me to find that out, I have to sit by them instead of me being out doing what I like to do. But that's already built. That's already plugged in. Or I'd have to go get my own Quicken accounts and set up all my own books and link it into my bank accounts and get everything all set up, or digital ad services that are all set up and all the pieces to be able to plug into with the different opportunities of vendors like Angie's or a Thumbtack or some of those pieces. And that's just what's here now. But the piece that I learned in my business that I had, what's it going to be like what's available in a year from now or
Correct.
2 years from now, right? So I can plug into this now, but I don't have to stay on top of it because the Z marketing team is going to stay on top of it and go, hey, here's one you guys really want to take a look at. It's evolving and do more. And I know somebody's doing that as opposed to me having to always stay on top of that piece.
Well, and to that point, I can still remember when we started Mighty Dog, there was zero conversation about AI call centers and those type of things. And that was a short time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's on the forefront of everyone's conversation about
Right.
what's this going to happen in terms of AI, et cetera. But you bring up a good point too. And I think that there's just a ton of value in the fact that you've owned a business successfully. And the point that I was going to bring up that you touched on is the fact that in a franchise system, the brand team is always looking ahead,
Mhm.
right? We're not necessarily selling HVAC systems and doing those things. So we're looking to make sure, is this marketing trend something we need to be locked into? This, whether it be even with product, when you talk about HVAC, 10 years ago, they probably weren't talking about mold and ductwork and those type of things that we know that are on the forefront, things that are coming around the corner. And you can, as a franchisee, you have the ability to settle in and have confidence that the brand teams are also looking into those things.
Right.
I mean, we can joke around about it in terms of golf, right? When you're playing golf and you're using your first set of irons are evolving and people are testing them and people are playing them.
Mhm.
And so when you decide to buy a new set of irons, you know that the technology is going to be there. And I think that when you talk about a franchise system, there's a little bit of that going on as well. There's people in the system that are testing it to make sure. So that way, when it is rolled out, it's as close to vetted as we can get. Nothing's ever perfect, obviously, but you touch on that point in terms of knowing, hey, I can lean into what I'm good at, and I can also lean into the franchisor for what they're good at so that it's a good partnership.
That's why it was a great fit for me, right? Because I've had that experience. I also have the experience of being at big corporations, and I know not a chance in hell I'm going back to doing that again.
Right.
I mean, answering to a C-suite and people above me that you're like questioning, that's kind of interesting, but you have to do it.
Correct.
Right? Now it's me. I get to do things the way I want to do it that works best with my team and how and everybody's on the same page in the game plan that we're all trying to drive to with what I'm driving. And I know I've got people at Horsepower and Varsity Zone working on the next things that are going to be best for us. Like when I first came to Discovery Days back in July, they were talking about we might be able to get a relationship with Train air conditioning units, which are really good units, right? And we didn't have that at the time. And now here I am I'm at Academy getting ready to open up. We got a relationship with Train at a price tier that's no way me on my own I could get. I probably couldn't even get a relationship with Train if I was doing it on my own, right? And to be able to have those types of things and have those offered, that's invaluable. And that's not where my highest and best use to try to go do that stuff.
Right.
But there's people here that's what they do.
And to your point, there's a lot to be said for, there's been many people in the world that have started their own business successfully, ran it successfully, and are doing fantastic. And that's great. But to your point, those conversations with a HVAC business owner in North Scottsdale and Train, they're not happening. They're not happening. Those conversations with a fencing person and Home Depot, they're not happening. But when you're a part of a franchise system that's doing whatever we're doing, those people listen. We say we have X amount of franchisees. You can see our track record, those type of things. And there's a lot to be said for that, where it's like, and you're able to also come back to the franchisor and say, hey, I'm seeing this in my conversations with people. Is this something we can also look into? And I think that, Horsepower will always lean in and say, is this something we should be looking into to make the total system better?
Yeah, that's why I like that whole perspective of locally owned, but nationally backed, right? So I'm local in the market. I know a lot of people in the market. I'm familiar with and comfortable with the market and get to run that business in the market. But nationally backed means you get to leverage how many franchisees does Horsepower Brands have?
Hundreds.
Right? And you get to leverage that scale in a way that can bring value to our individual franchisee businesses. And that's something that resonates really well for me because I don't have to go create it.
Absolutely.
I don't have to go spend a whole lot of time trying to do that as opposed to running my business.
Well, I think there's, I joke around about it, but there's value. And I think that value in that currency sometimes is not only is it saving you money. Let's just say, for example, it was a marketing tactic and you thought, man, this sounds like it would be really good. Oftentimes people are putting money into that to find out it's not really good. But it's not only saves you the currency of money, but it also saves you the currency of time,
Right.
having to figure out how that works. So you also have a unique perspective in terms of, as you said, not too long ago, you were at a Discovery Day. Talk quickly. How was that process from getting out of Discovery Day, deciding Varsity Zone was a fit for you, through that onboarding and leading you to Academy now?
I'll say this, Dave. Every person I've worked with at every step of the process at Horsepower Brands has been great. The differentiator for me up front on all the different ones I was looking at, besides the overall, I just really like the HVAC business. Chris was awesome in terms of being the first person I met with and talking to about becoming part of Horsepower and Varsity Zone. And then you go to the Discovery Days, which is great to see everything and experience it and get, touch and feel what's going on. And then I just said, yeah, this is where I'm going to go. And you go through signing all the agreements, signing the papers, which you got to do. You get your attorneys to look at it, make sure everything's all set and, everything's in line and there's no issues you got to deal with. And that was a pretty simple process. Took a little bit of time to go through it. Then it's just a matter of get your financing in place, work with your onboarding specialist. You have a phase one onboarding specialist who holds your hand all the way through the process. Courtney, shout out to her. She was great going through that process. Then you get into phase two with John and getting everything all set and get your space pulled together, get your vehicles pulled together, all the things. It's a checklist all the way through the process that you get to go through and get it set up. And there's training all the way through. Some of the training was a little laborious, but you do it, right? It gets the message out there.
Yep.
But, and then you come back here to Academy, you have to do certain things and meet certain checklists and be ready. Then you can come back and go to Academy. And this 4-day Academy in person, live, which is some really good things to immerse yourself into how the business is going to work for the first 60, 90 days. Has been really good. And they get you ready for what's going to happen when you go back. But it's a process, and it's a structured process to go through, which makes sense. So when you do hit the ground running, you're ready. You're not just like, oh, crap, I forgot to do this. Oh, crap, I forgot to do that. You go through everything and you make sure that you minimize the oh, craps as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can call you next week and say, hey, we had a couple of oh, craps, or maybe we don't. Well,
and even if and I think there's a big difference in being part of a franchise system when you have the oh craps. When you have an oh crap by yourself, you're like, who am I supposed to call for this? Right. When you have an oh crap part of a franchise system, you could be calling within your network. You could be calling somebody on the brand team, however it might be. There's a systematic way to find the solution, right? So it doesn't become the other word, right? When it becomes, And so I think there's a lot to also be said for, you're right. Like when I came on at Horsepower as a coach, I think about our onboarding system, because I was a part of it in the beginning, as a playbook, right? There's going to be things about, I'm sure there was things about setting up your business that you knew, like no big deal. But I always used to say it's important to have those things in there to get them checked off, because some of those things, they just slip through the cracks. And so even if it's as easy as, yeah, I understand the LLC, I understand the doing business as, I understand that stuff, it's okay. To be able to check that off, it's done. And also when it comes to business ownership, it starts to build a little momentum of, we're getting these things done. We're closer.
You know what else that I realized going through that? Because you're right, a lot of stuff, you've got to do it. But it's like, it gave you confidence that I'm not missing anything.
Yeah.
These guys would know it if I was missing something. So you knew you could focus on this, get it done, and there wasn't something else that you didn't go, oh my God, nobody thought about this. It's there. You just got to put your head down and go do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was even a couple things in there that you thought, that's unique. I didn't think about that when I was going through this process. It could be something as simple as, a lot of times in the marketing, when you're setting up your phone numbers, you're like, what do I need? What are 9 phone numbers? I don't know what the number is now, but I remember the first time I heard it, it didn't make sense to me.
Right.
But you're talking about the vehicle, the yard sign, the call center, all of those things are all dialed in. And truthfully, when you think about it, you go, man, I'm glad somebody else knew about that, because that's a thing that I would have never touched on or knew where to go.
Right. And the other thing I'll say too, Dave, is that if you're going to decide to get into the franchise process and go through a system like this, just embrace it. It's all there. Say, I'm going to go franchise. That's the way I'm going to go. Embrace it. As soon as you find yourself questioning, is that the way it should really be done? Yeah, that's the way it should be done.
Yeah.
Just go with it. You're going to just waste a whole lot of energy if you try to fight it. And I've had people I've talked with currently in the system, and ones that were thinking about going through, that always say, why this, why that, why this? Why don't you just do it? You'll find out it's not that hard. If you instead of fighting it, just go do it. It makes sense.
That's a great point. If you were in my shoes and you were trying to hand pick somebody that would be a good franchisee, are there any traits or qualities that you think that, somebody that wants to get into business, and I'll go back to your first business. When you talk about business ownership, are there any traits or qualities that you think people need to have if they want to get into business ownership?
The thing that stood out for me this week, and this is the week that brought it to the forefront for me. I've been in sales my entire career, right? Sales is sales. It's a process on how you have to go through a defined process, and you need to be disciplined to that process and stick to it and do all the things you're supposed to do through the process. I can sell a mortgage to anybody, but I wouldn't sell a mortgage to anybody. I sell it to somebody who needs it, because I know how to go through and do a needs analysis, and you do it on a trust basis. And what you realize this week when they're doing some structured sales training and sales process, I don't care if it's a mortgage or it's an HVAC system or it's blinds or
it's
anything
a widget.
else, it's a process. Follow the process. And that's been a big, I kind of weird, but it's been an aha for me this week. I don't have to redo anything. I just got to take what I've been doing the last 35, 40 years, that same process, and apply it to HVAC. So I've been applying it to HVAC this week. And so I would say you've got to be somebody who is willing to just get in and embrace a process, and you have to sell. You're it. You're going to be a business owner. You're the guy that's got to be out there, or the gal that's got to be out there doing the selling. And you got to do it through a process and be authentic if you want to be successful at it. So I think that's the biggest trait. I mean, if you're really good at other things, operations and processes and things like that, that could work too. I don't know, but it seems to me that you got to be willing to be out there selling and doing it effectively.
Yeah. And to your point, you have to adapt.
Mm.
You've been selling for a long time. And it's like, how do I change the widget from mortgages to HVAC? And it's a different clientele and it's a different need analysis, as you said, but there's a way. And it's going to make sense to you when it makes sense. And it's the same thing. Me transferring from coaching football to being in the business world. When you first step in it, you go, oh man, I don't know anything. But really you're like, well, this is no different than that. And that is no different than this. And so I think that there's a lot to be said for that. And I think to your point as well, like you being able to adapt is that high quality.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say, you said it's a different clientele. It's not. 30 years ago when I was doing mortgages, I'd go into people's kitchens. I'd sit down. I'd take a loan application. I'd talk to them. Selling an HVAC, guess where you are? You're going into somebody's house. You're going into their kitchen and you're selling them a high-end appliance or the most expensive the appliance they have in their home. So it's really not that different.
Very true.
It's just, and I don't think the clientele is going to be the clientele. They're just buying different things. And I don't think it's not that different, but the product's different. So to me, that's easy. You just switch up the product, know the product, but you're dealing with the same clientele, same processes.
Maybe in terms of mortgage, it's a little bit more of a want for the HVAC. They're going to need it at that point, right? But at the same time, yes, it's the same. It's a high ticket item.
Yep.
Right. And there's going to be things like mortgage insurance, like a maintenance program. There's going to be things that are they correspond to each other.
Exactly.
So in this process of going through onboarding, getting to academy, did you start to build your team early on in the process of, I'm sure when you went your business plan, you said, okay, this is my role. This is where I fit in. These are some other puzzle pieces I'm looking for. Just talk about that a little bit, about how you maybe built out your team or how you plan to build your team.
That's been an interesting process because I knew going into HVAC, and I talked to Chris about this and I talked to others here at Horsepower about it. I'm not going to be an HVAC expert.
Right.
I don't want to be an HVAC expert, but I need to hire somebody who is, obviously, right? And they plugged me into a recruiter that was part of the national branding piece.
Blue collar recruiter.
So they plugged me into them, found somebody, and they went to work and found me a phenomenal general manager. I'm very lucky to find David. David Reed is my general manager. Over 30 years experience in HVAC in the Valley, knows his way around, knows people, has it all set. And so now it's a matter of clearly defining the roles. Okay, it's me. I'm going to market. I'm going to be running the business. I'll be selling. I'll be helping close deals if I can help close deals. When it comes to, hey, let's put our packages together on our price book and let's go set, know the ins and outs and do a service call or do an install on a new system. That's not me. I'm not going to go there. So he'll manage that. I'll manage more the business side of it, and he'll have a vested interest in it as we go through and build this piece up. And he knows what our plans are. He knows what our goals are. My goal personally, and David knows this, is that in a few years, he looks at me and goes, what are you doing here? You're just getting in the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Which would be great to have that. And then we'll go on and look at maybe another territory or doing something else. But, so we'll build it out that way. And he'll be leading all the HVAC stuff. I'll be doing a lot of the business stuff and helping on the sell side.
That's incredible. And I think that, sometimes finding those people isn't as lucky as the first one. Sometimes it's the second one, whatever that might be. How has that relationship kind of worked with you not being in HVAC, but being in sales and very good in business versus somebody who has been in HVAC and maybe hasn't ran their own business, but at the same time has a lot of knowledge? How have you felt like you've been able to bridge that gap to say, hey, this is an opportunity for you, David, to say, hey, these are the things that I didn't like about when I worked for other people. And these are the things that you know about business. How do we work together to make this our business? So we're pushing forward and saying, we're going to change the game in our area in HVAC because customer journey is going to be like this. Transparency is going to be like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening in the HVAC business right now. And obviously a market like Phoenix is a hotbed for a lot of no pun. Not this time of year. Anyways, it is pretty nice out there right now. But I don't know that we're really going out to change the world. but we're out to create an environment and a culture with the people that we want on our team that want to do things the right way for people that we get the opportunity to serve. That's what we want to do. We want to build our reputation off of doing that, because what I'm learning is that the HVAC business, this is what my GM will tell you, it feels like a crummy business, like a bunch of used car salesmen, and there's some bad reputations out there, and we're not going to be like that. That's just not, it's not how I've ever done in my own business or all the way through my career. I've never wanted to you do what's right for the customer. That might mean you get the sale, it might mean you don't get the sale, but you do what's right for the customer. And David and I, when we met, and just a quick story, he's on his way, Blue Collar connected us. He's on his way over to meet me. He goes, why am I meeting with this guy? He's no experience in the HVAC business. He's just starting out. He goes, but he was not, in a good situation because of some things that have happened in terms of his company being bought a few times and turnover and a lot of things happening. And so we sat down and talked, and I was talking to him about what my background is. I have no desire to become an HVAC expert. I need somebody who knows it. I want a partner, not just somebody who's going to work for me. And how do we make that work together? And that's what I'm looking for. And our 45-minute meeting we had scheduled lasted for almost 2 hours. And we got along really well. We shared stories on what's happening. And I was just about ready to give him an offer right there on the table. Let's make this work, right? But you bite your tongue a little bit. Let's just go, think about this, sleep on it. But within about 10 days, we had a deal put together, and he was shocked. He's like, I can't believe this. But and he's been in business in the HVAC business for 35 years, so he's been doing it for quite a while. And he's looking for a place where he can just focus on doing what he likes to do. I can focus on doing what I like to do, and the two can come together. And he likes the idea that he can go, we get this thing going well enough. He goes, I just kick you out of here, and I get to run this thing. Beautiful. It's a win-win.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point, oftentimes opportunity comes from the strangest places. Yeah. He's been with a company that's maybe been sold, like you said, and transitioned, but he's right at the ceiling. And he's like, they're never going to take my input on this. I'm just this person. And so, to your point, he says, what am I doing? But now every day he wakes up after doing it for 35 years, he might even wake up now with a little more excitement, because now he's really doing it.
I hope so. That's the goal. And have him be right with me, arm in arm, building this, and we build the culture, we build the environment, and we build the reputation for the company, and we'll see where we can take it. That's the ultimate.
Well, we're excited for that. And so again, I appreciate your time jumping in here. I look forward to, we'll get on another podcast soon as you get rolling. And again, everybody, thanks again for joining us on the Franchise Frontier podcast. Like we said, the playbook's out there. Are you willing to run it? Look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thanks, Dave.